All right, everyone. So it looks like we have gone live on Facebook here, so we can get started. So hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning into this awesome discussion that we're about to have with a pretty great group of ladies tonight. Tonight's panel is called Mama Knows Best, and it's sponsored by the Womxn Project, which is a Rhode Island-based organization bringing art and activism together to affect change. So like I said, we have a great group here tonight that includes legislators, candidates for office, organizers, activists, and policy wonks, although I am fairly certain that none of those things are mutually exclusive amongst this group. So tonight we'll be hearing different perspectives and personal reflections on the many challenges, but also the many opportunities that moms face when running for office, holding office, and also working to shape policy. So my hope for this discussion is that we'll be very real about the challenges we face, but also share the ways in which our roles as moms are advantageous in so many ways, and hopefully inspire some other moms to get involved. So I'll be moderating. My name is Bridget Valverde. I am a Rhode Island State Senator. I'm finishing up my first term in office and running for re-election in November. And in keeping with tonight's theme, I am a mom. I have two kids, Oscar and Elliot, who just started school yesterday and today. My littlest one went back to started kindergarten. So there are a lot of emotions in this household right now. So I'm sure all of you had kids going back to school in various forms over the past few weeks. Okay, so just a couple of things before we dig in. We are live on Facebook. So if time allows, at the end of our discussion, we might be able to take a question or two from the audience. So anyone watching from home, if you have a question that you'd like our panelists to answer, please leave them in the comments. Okay, we only have an hour together, so let's get started. So I'm first going to go around and ask all of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves, maybe say something about their work, and share anything they'd want everyone to know about them. So I'll start up in my upper left corner with Janie Segee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janie Segee Rodriguez, and I was a candidate for the Pawtucket City Council here in Ward 5. I'm a mom. I have two daughters, a 5-year-old Kailani and a 12-year-old Destiny. And I work in education. I run a career exploration program. And, you know, being a mom is my #1 priority. So that means that my kiddos are with me all the time.
Great. All right, let's go to Ariana.
Hey, so I'm Ariana Kelly, and like Janie, I ran for office. The first time I ran for office was 11 years ago. I serve now in the Maryland General Assembly. So I won my first election, and now it's been 11 years I've been serving in the Maryland legislature. I have two children. When I first ran, they were, 3 and 6. They were little. Now they're bigger, 13 and 16. So I have seen a lot of different opportunities, challenges, and awesome things that come from both being a mom in elected office and also being a mom running for office. So I'm excited to talk about those things.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, Ruth Buffalo.
Nidosha Zao, Madashi Mia Adeshad, Smabe Sigid, Smanzigadad, Znakbaga. Hello, and thank you for welcoming us into this virtual space together. I'm a mom. I have 4 children here in South Fargo. There's 6 of us in our household, and the oldest is a high school senior, and then the second oldest is 13-year-old 8th grader, and then 2 6-year-old kindergarten twins, a boy and a girl. And I'm serving a 4-year term in the North Dakota State House of Representatives for District 27.
Wonderful, you've got your hands full. Twin kindergartners, wow.
Yeah.
All right, well, I feel a little relief over here. All right, Secretary Gorbea.
Hi, from the Ocean State. I am thrilled to be overrepresented here in this panel with some fantastic other women, particularly Senator Bridget Valverde, who we work a lot on at State House on all sorts of projects together. Of course, Councilwoman Aniece, Germain, and then phenomenal candidate, Janie Segee, who I've known for a long time. It's great to be with all of you and all of my fellow women as I'm listening to some of the other women from across the country. There's a lot more that unites us than differentiates us as women candidates who are also moms. And I say that because I've been privy to being part of bipartisan groups that bring women together. And it's really fascinating how much we have to bond around because of our experiences. But I am originally from Puerto Rico and have lived in Rhode Island for almost 30 years now. Became Rhode Island's Secretary of State in 2015. And when I did so, Rhode Islanders had elected the first Hispanic to statewide office in New England. And I say that with great pride for my state. It didn't happen elsewhere. It happened here in Rhode Island. And I have 3 daughters, who are now, let's see, ages 10, 14, and 16, 2 different schools, some online schooling, some in person. It's all an adventure. Every day is definitely an adventure. So, and I'm married to my husband, Steve Dont, who's an oceanographer at the University of Rhode Island.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, now I'll go down to Julie Zebrek.
Hey there, I'm Julie Zebrek. I'm down in Maryland with Representative Kelly. I am a mom of 2 girls who are 17 and 19. I am not running for office and I am not in office, but my everyday job is to get women into office. So I'm an organizer, I'm an activist, I'm a fundraiser, and I left the federal government where I was an attorney for 19 years in 2016 to try to elect the first woman president and to stay home with my girls. And I've been at it ever since. And I'm really excited to help elect the first female vice president.
Wonderful. All right, and now down to Aniece Germain.
Thank you, Senator Valverde. Thank you, everyone, Womxn Project, for organizing this. And I am really thrilled to be here with you, Secretary of State Nellie Gorbea, that I admire so much. And that's Janie, that I know, and I'm so glad you're all here. And everyone else, and I'm so happy to be here with you and to have this conversation as a mom. I am Aniece Germain. I am originally from Haiti. So I don't know if you know about Haiti, but I am from Haiti. So it's 700 miles from Miami. I am a mom of 3. I got 3 boys, 10-year-old Oliver and Kyle, 8-year-old, and Nolan, 5. They all doing distance learning. I choose that because my second one, Kyle, he has sickle cell disease. And I was like, let's look how things going on because I cannot take chance with him. So we agree that all of them stay home, not hybrid. So all of them start school and it's been wonderful. So who I am right now is city council. I was appointed to the city council in Cranston in July. So, and I'm running for election in November. And I'm happy to hear Julie say she's working to elect women, help women, because I think I need a lot of help here. I've been working a lot doing the past week, going out and to see, hey, I need to be elected. So things going really harsh here in Cranston. I'm in Cranston, so it's the only, for city council, I'm the only one that have an opponent. So I will need really all hands in deck to get me elected. And Jenny, I'm so sad that you wasn't getting again. So, but we need all the conduct. We're not giving up. So we have to keep going. keep going. So I'm happy to discuss what, Mama knows and how that's going. So let's get started.
Wonderful. Okay, and last but not least, we have Kelda Royce.
Hi, everyone. Great to be with you. I'm Kelda Royce, the newly elected state senator from Madison, Wisconsin. I served 2 terms in the state assembly, but that was actually a long time ago. I was elected in 2008 when I was single and didn't have any kids. And when I was in the assembly, I got married to a man with 2 children. So I became a stepmom in office. And then I ran for Congress and gave up my seat in the assembly, lost. And I ran for governor in 2018 in Wisconsin and became the first candidate to breastfeed during a campaign ad. So in addition to my 2 stepdaughters who are now 19 and 16, I have 2 daughters that are 6 and almost 3. And everybody's doing virtual learning. So home is somewhat chaotic and loud, which is why I'm on the screen porch. I'm locked outside and excited to talk with you all and especially hear different people's experiences campaigned around the country.
Wonderful, Kelda. I speak for myself, but probably for everyone for everyone who saw that ad that you put out there, it was really inspirational. I think a lot of us felt very seen when we saw that. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so our first question, we are seeing so many moms running for office these days, we face a lot of barriers to running, barriers that are both kind of internal and external. And so I'd love to have everyone share a couple of thoughts on what are some barriers that they see for moms running for office, or specific barriers that they faced when running for office or helping with a campaign, or things that they saw on a campaign. Okay, so let's start over with Janie again.
So specific barriers, I mean, for me as a mom, I think barriers sometimes it's, the time that it really requires to run a campaign. And as a mom, most of us anyways, everyone has some sort of job or whatever they dedicate their time to. But of course you still have like your regular daily duties, your mom duties, helping with work and, homework, virtual learning now. I think that's kind of, the pandemic has kind of thrown this whole thing out of whack. But for me, one of the biggest things is mommy guilt, because, I feel bad when I'm like leaving the house, or like if my 5-year-old wants to go canvas, but like I know that she only wants to knock on 3 doors and then she wants to go home. And, so I feel guilty like saying no, or like, or sometimes I almost like am shamed in taking them with me. And sometimes it's fine to like take them to events and stuff like that. But for me, I think that's kind of one of the biggest barriers, is that to run a campaign the right way, it requires a lot of time, not only out in the field, but like with data and, all different fundraising, and it can be quite difficult with little ones.
Yeah. All right, Kelda, do you have some thoughts to share on this?
I do, and some of them are not printable words. I think that obviously the fact that women still bear a disproportionate share of the work at home, even if women are partnered, is a huge barrier to women's success in general, and especially campaigns, which are really, far and above a normal 9-to-5 job. But I also think that there's a lot of deep misogyny in our society, and you're often swimming upstream, especially when you're running for an executive position. There's a lot of research on there about how the more competent women are seen professionally, the less likable they are. And that in politics, that's a huge problem. Whereas for men, there's really no correlation. You can be competent, not competent, likable or unlikable, but there's no correlation there. And so I think we really have to break that down if we want to see women in more positions of power, which I definitely do.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Ruth, would you like to share?
Yes, the girl twin is joining me. We call her the Gill. Yes, the first time I ran for office was in 2016, and it was in a statewide race alongside 2 other Native Americans. And at that time, it was a historic moment, we were told, because this had never happened before in any state across North Dakota, across the country, where we had 3 Native Americans on a ticket or a ballot statewide. But we still felt like we were in the deficit in terms of representation. And so although we didn't win our races, we still had a lot of small wins along the way. We had a lot of first-time voters come out and support us. And so I stayed involved and with our party, and then also ran in 2018 for a legislative seat. So currently in North Dakota, I'm the only Native woman serving in our state legislature. So there again, we're in a deficit in terms of adequate representation. And the other positive thing that we have happening this year is we have 3 Native women running for state legislature this year. 2 from the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara Nation, which I'm a citizen of also. And to that point, we don't have Democratic Nonpartisan League representation west of the Missouri River. And that includes an entire tribal nation, which 2 of these women candidates are from. And so we're hoping that we can get more representation into the state legislature. We're under just barely 31% as far as women in our state legislature. And so we're hoping to really change those numbers in this upcoming election. In Fargo, we have a Native woman running for District 16 House, and she did really well in the primary. And so we're hoping to get more women elected in this election cycle. And so some of the challenges, I would say, for myself being a woman and a mom and a Native woman, Indigenous woman, Native American here in North Dakota, is probably, things that I haven't encountered before. But it's interesting to see the treatment, I guess you could say, of women across the board in the halls of our state legislature, in just the blind spots, I think, that men sometimes have. And so it's really interesting to witness those different pockets of blind spots that we have. So thank you again for hosting this space, and I might end up with a new hairdo by the time this panel is over. So
it's looking lovely. Yes, thank you. You said so many very interesting things. I wanted to go back to what you said about first-time voters being inspired to vote by your candidacy, by your ticket that you're running on, because I think that's something that moms can all kind of take as an advantage, that you can go out there and you can inspire people who maybe hadn't thought about voting before, just by being who you are and bringing something new to the table. Okay, so let's go to Julie Zebrak. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I obviously have very different challenges because I haven't run for office, and I wouldn't even say that mine are challenges in comparison. But what has been really important to me is to make sure that that as we're trying to elect more women, that the financial piece is there, and that's something that is a challenge, I think, for women in general, to ask for money and then to sort of keep going at it. I think working, I've raised for candidates for the presidential races, and I've helped women who are running try to raise money, and certainly we saw it. In 2019, watched Kamala Harris, who was my candidate that I was supporting, need to drop out of the race in December because the money ran out. And so one of the things that is really important to me is to convince others how important it is to get in early to support women financially. And it's, it's hard. People, we need to have more women in office to make it seem a lot less of a big deal to put women in office. And so something that's, I just think, really important and that all of you have had to grapple with is getting comfortable asking for money and then keeping at it and not feeling guilty about doing it. And I think that's really important. And as far, in doing all this, I have, as I mentioned, teenage daughters who have been with me on this journey in terms of getting really political and spending all my time on politics. And, the advantage, especially with teenagers, is that they have a role model that they're seeing. They're seeing me supporting women, they're supporting women. One of my girls is now phone banking for Sarah Gideon's campaign in Maine. And so we have these conversations at the dinner table. I want them to know, and I know a lot of you have girls, I want them to know that women can do anything. And that's part of this, is that I want them to know they can do it. And unfortunately in our system, having the funding behind you is a huge part of that. And, so they're seeing that too.
Yes. All right. Aniece, do you want to weigh in on this?
Definitely. So one of the many barriers, I would say, I don't know if it's something, I was watching Kamala Harris drop out and I was stunned because why she has to drop out? Because of money. And we know there is a lot of money in this country, right? So she didn't have the big money. And I experienced that with me here. Because of the pandemic, we cannot do the traditional fundraising we used to do. But I'm struggling. I am the first Black woman in Cranston running for office. And we have a lot of people say, hey, yes, but where is the money? So I'm struggling. I need money to continue the campaign. And I said, if I don't have money, there's no way I'm gonna win. So money is a big barrier for women. I say women of color, particularly because that's what I experience. And I see it with Kamala Harris. So it's all who who is your friend that will support you and how they will support you. So that's one of the things. So, people that has could give you $100 or they give you $20 and they know it's something, but they can do a little bit more, right? And asking for money, that's the thing for me. And I'm trying to learn how to make the ask. The first time my campaign manager and my team, we were setting up a day to ask, and I was like, oh my God, how do I start that? And I feel so, bad to ask really for money, and I'm learning that. And one other issue of barriers for women is really, Janie talked about, is the time and the guilt having children. So sometimes after work, I come in and my son came, Mommy, can we spend some time together now? You were out all day. And I was like, yeah, I have to go canvas now. And you feel that, oh my God, you have to go. And I've been doing for the past week and every day, 4 o'clock, and to go out. And now school started. They are in school during the day, and I can't even be there with them because I go to work. And I come home, and now, can we spend some time together? I have to go. And by the time I come back, they have to be in bed. You feel this guilt, have not able to spend time with them. And this is something you have to deal with if you really want to make the difference. Because for myself, why am I in this ways? It's to see how I can make a change for children here. Mm-hmm. And for some people, they thought everything is great in Cranston. We have a great education system, but we have inequities. We don't have proper funding. We don't have equitable funding for our children. And I see it in elementary school. And I know if we want a better generation, if we want to change the way things have been doing, change the mindset, we need to start early, and we need to invest in elementary school, invest in universal pre-K, and start to shape the generation we want for the future. So that's why I am in this race. But the barriers, I'm a little lucky. My husband is so supportive. So when I have to come, and my mom will make dinner, so I will go canvassing. He's okay with that. So that's another piece, because we know how, when you are a mom, you have a husband, you have to take care of your husband too. You have to take care of the kids, but now you have to go campaign, and there is some level of, I would say, is it neglect? But you have to make some priorities. And is it hard? But when you have a supportive husband, it makes it easier for you. But as I said, time, money, it's a big, big barriers for me.
Yep. Okay. All right. Nellie?
There we go. I need to unmute. Yeah, I mean, I think that certainly, so now I'm in my second and last term as Secretary of State. We have term limits here in Rhode Island. And when I first ran, my kids were, let's see, my oldest, who's now turning 17, was then at that time 10. And then, so all the way to the little one being about 3 years old. And it was interesting what the challenges were when they were little as opposed to what they are now. So that also changes over time, even when you come into office. What struck me was that while, yes, I mean, I had to overcome sort of the comfort level, the discomfort around asking for money and things like that. I for the most part, I've gotten over it. I'm not saying that I'm really great at it, but I've gotten over it because I can say this is about investing in the change that we want to see. But there are moments when I think about my fellow electeds or candidates who don't have children and think how many more hours I could put into my fundraising or other events or things. And yet at the same time, I've made a real firm commitment to saying, you know what? I can't be that person. We have a sector of politics that was designed around guys, and guys for the most part who had no other responsibilities because they had spouses who would take care of everything. So I realized very early in my first term that if I attempted to do that, I would absolutely completely fail. And had a very heart-to-heart conversation with my staff and said, you know what, we're going to try to limit the times, the nights out. Now, this is easier once you're elected as opposed to when you're running. When you're running, it's like all hands down, kind of thing. But even after you're elected, you find yourself saying, if I don't change this, and bite the bullet, then other people like me are not going to be able to deal with it either. And so whether that be bringing the kids after school to the state house because I live half an hour away, and I know Montana, like that's not or North Dakota, that's like not very far distances, but in Rhode Island, that could be the moon. So it's bringing them to the state house and really saying to myself, if I had a store, they would be coming with me to the store. Like there are a number of other professions that I can think of where people just are going to bring their kids with them. And allowing, but at the same time, trying to figure out what is that space as they've gotten older to have them not be forced to be with me all the time. So allowing them to say, you know what, you want to go hang out in my office while I do this reception? There's going to be some great munchies. Snacks after school become reception food. It is what it is. And then you go home and you turn it off. But those are some of the lessons learned in terms of the barriers are those because this was a setup for guys. And to feel that you're a failure because you can't conform to that is wrong. What we need to do is to pivot over to creating our own structures that make sense for us. And so I like to tell women candidates, there is no plan. Yes, you need to raise money. You don't have to have the most money. You have to spend it the most wisely. You have to have the best campaign. And that does take money. But, there's other ways in which you can make your mark. So that's a little bit about sort of the barriers and what I think. By the way, I do believe fervently that if we can ever get campaign finance reform actually done, it will have a huge impact in who actually is able to run for office, both gender and professions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. And I think Ariana, I think you're the last one who didn't get to weigh in here.
I get to close it out. Well, I think Nellie was really spot on, right? This whole system was designed around a certain type of candidate, and a mother is not that type of candidate. So you have to really, when looking at the barriers, realize that not only are married mothers not the candidate, but single mothers are not the typical candidate. Single dads are not the typical candidate, and all of the institutions and systems that we need to change are going to benefit so many groups of people. I have a really large network now of people in politics who are what you might call a non-traditional candidate. Maybe it is a married white man, but his wife doesn't, married white straight man, but his wife doesn't feel like doing all the stuff that typical political spouse used to want to do. She's my ally. She's my friend. She's working with me to change the system. My friend who is a widower, who is a father of 2 children, he's my ally working with me to change all of those structures. So it's pretty awesome. I mean, obviously we're 50 or 75 or 100 or 500 years behind, but we're slowly getting there because we're building this coalition of people who want to see the political structures change to be more representative of modern family life, right? So when I think about the barriers, everybody has really touched on the things I had written down. I wrote down money, I wrote down time, I wrote down childcare, I wrote down higher standards for women candidates. I'll talk about that for a little second. And then I think you mentioned the sort of internal challenges. Some of the things that Kelda was talking about made me think about this. One of my internal challenges when I was deciding whether to run for office was this, I had a perfectionism that I think you see a lot with women who are looking for running for office. Am I good enough? What if I say the wrong thing in a debate? What if someone thinks I'm not that smart, right? I had to shake that perfectionism. And then the fear of losing. I said to a woman mentor of mine when I was deciding whether to run, I really want to run, but I'm only going to run if I know I can win. No dude ever said that, right? Because we know that running for office, even if you're not going to win, can make permanent change in the system, in policy, in your own ability to run for the next office. So getting rid of that fear of losing and just embracing the fact that the running itself has meaning was huge for me. In terms of the time and the guilt that Aniece was talking about, I always think about July 4th. This is the first, I've been in office 11 years now. So my children are 13 and 16. So their whole life, every 4th of July, they marched in parades. This was the first 4th of July, thanks to COVID, that we just hung out. We didn't go to fireworks because it's COVID, but it was so refreshing to not have to get up early in the morning and spend the whole darn day in the heat of July, shaking hands, passing out candy. It sucks. I'm just going to be honest. 4th of July, when you're a parent and a politician, sucks. But it is what it is, and the benefits outweigh the sucktasticness. So the other 2 stories I wanted to share with you, one had to do with sort of the responsibility of parenthood and running for office. On my first campaign, I was in a really tough race. It was me and 10 guys running for one open seat. And it was extremely competitive, hard fought. We finally got to election day. I was exhausted. We did not know if I was going to win. I ended up winning by a couple hundred votes, but at the time we didn't know. And as we've been talking about, every vote counts. So I was out there working it at the polls, shaking hands, exhausted. And about 2 in the afternoon, I get a phone call from the preschool. Hello, come pick up Leo. He's got head lice. And at first I thought to myself, of course he has head lice. And then I thought, I wonder if I'm the only candidate today on election day who got that call. Because every mother here has gotten that call and knows the pain of that call. And of course, I dumped the call off on my dad. I made him go pick up Leo. He had to delouse his hair. And I kept shaking hands because I knew that was a shared experience I shared with all those other mothers out there, and it wasn't being well represented in the government, right? So, which brings me to like one of the reasons why moms particularly are not that well represented. I think that sometimes some people in the electorate have a high, and this is the misogyny piece that Kelda was talking about, have a higher standard for women. When I was door knocking, particularly for women with children, when I was door knocking, it was not unusual for me to hear from voters, younger and older, not just older, what's going to happen to your kids? Who's going to take care of your kids when you're doing this job? I was so sad for me, but it was good for me to know that that was, you know, something that voters were thinking about. I had to prepare an answer that they were going to feel comfortable with because I needed their vote. But the thing that just sticks with me, again, in my first campaign, every vote counted. I was 32 years old. I had a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. And I had been working in nonprofit organizations and advocacy in the women's rights world. I lived in one world where women were treated a certain way. And then I sort of moved myself into sort of the mainstream world. And I realized that what really mattered, the most important thing, was that first impression. What does my hair look like? What does my makeup look like? What do my clothes look like? And it sucked because the 10 guys I was running against didn't have to wear high heels and they didn't have to put on makeup and they didn't have to spend half an hour doing their hair. So I was working harder from them just from jump. And the first mailer that I sent out, one of the candidates running against me was much younger. He was 22 years old. He had just graduated from college. His father was a very powerful political figure in the state of Maryland, and he decided as a graduation gift to buy his son this legislative seat. So he helped him with all the fundraising. He has got more money than God, and I'm running against this kid. So I'm trying to differentiate myself by saying, look, I'm 32 years old. I've got 2 kids. I've got some experience. I'm much more representative of this district. I understand your concerns more than a recent college graduate might. So when we picked the photos for my first mailer, I had these like gray hairs coming in the front. And I thought to myself, gosh, you know what I should do? I should leave those gray hairs in because it'll reinforce that she's mature message. So I sent out the mailer. I'm real proud of myself because I'm so thoughtful. And I get a phone call to my campaign office. Thank God I didn't answer it. I would have lost everything. It's a woman and she's calling. My staffer answered and she said, I was really leaning towards your candidate. It's not just a regular woman. It's like a grass tops leader, someone I really wanted to get on my team. I was really leaning towards your candidate, but then I got her mailer today and I see that her gray hairs are coming in. And that says to me, she lacks attention to detail. And I'm thinking, no, it's because I have so much attention to detail, But these are the kind of challenges that, and I did eventually get her support and all the people she brought with her, but these are the kind of challenges that are sort of unique to women and unique to moms. So don't let those challenges dissuade you from running because there's a lot of benefit that comes with it too that I think we'll be talking about soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, so then we'll segue. So there are a lot of challenges that we all face, but those challenges and our just the experience of being a mom can be a catalyst, and the source of inspiration for the work that we all do. So I'd love for everyone to share a policy that they've worked on or a program that they started, whatever it may be, that was sort of inspired or informed by being a mom. So let's start, let's go kind of reverse. Let's start with Secretary Gorbea this time. Oh, you're muted, Nellie.
Yeah, so for me, I think, at the core of all the work that I've done to give voters in Rhode Island options for voting is the fact that I'm a mom, and I realize how crazy life can be for so many people out there. Again, our democracy originally started by white landowning men, served their purposes very well. And over time, that wonderful document of the Constitution has been amended. And it's been amended mostly around the issue of voting rights, right? So we expanded it to white non-landowning men, and then we went and added, suffrage for women, and then the Voting Rights Act and all of that. But the structures of both how people get elected and governing have not been similarly expanded. And that, I think, is one of the struggles that our democracy is facing right now. So a lot of the work that I've done around civic engagement is it is coming from my point of view as a mom, as a woman of color who intersects with a lot of different realities. And I know that, you know, not everybody can take time off during election day to go between 7 and 8, which is the times of the polling locations, to go vote. So ensuring now during a pandemic that people can keep their families safe by providing, yes, ballot applications to every single, you know, registered active voter for this very important election is at the deep core coming from that experience of not being part of that system. And Rhode Islanders will have the opportunity to either vote early in person, voting from home, or to vote on election day, whatever you choose. But that's the kind of perspective that, you know, a working mom can bring to the table.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, let's go down to Julie.
Hi. So I gotta get better with the mute button. Anyway, so I'm excited to tell you about my program. Even though I'm not in office or running for office, my whole brand is, since 2016, is that I started Moms for HRC. Then we became, after 2016, we became Yes Moms Can, and now we're Joe Mamas. And my way of sort of helping moms and helping women candidates and all candidates is I organize moms to get active for the first time in elections. So we teach them how to get comfortable talking about policy. We teach them how to canvass. We teach them how to phone bank. We teach them the importance of donating, and we use the sort of mom's, I guess, door to bring people in and help elect candidates. And one of the things that's really been satisfying about it is that all these women who have sort of over time been intimidated by politics or helping on a campaign, we're able to teach them how to do it with their kids, getting their kids involved, having their kids make signs, you know, whatever it is, go canvassing with them. But that's sort of how we bring moms to the table. And we have the view that moms are really the best ambassadors for candidates, because I think it was Nellie who started mentioning this at the beginning, that like these are the issues that cut across every political party. Moms can, you know, meet you on the playground or meet you at the grocery store and have a very similar experience. And it doesn't matter what your politics are. And so moms are really good at then sort of kicking off those conversations to talk about candidates. So that's my mom program, my mom policy. And, you know, hopefully it will, you know, reap big benefits in the future.
Wonderful. I know that so many women candidates are so glad that there are people like you around who are willing to do that work to kind of bring candidates and people who want to support them together. Okay, so let's go to Ariana.
Oh, awesome. Policy. Okay. So I think the policy I would like to highlight is one that I worked on with my daughter. So Maeve is 16 now. When she was 13, we had this presidential election. You might remember it was dispiriting for her. She was very sad, and she came to me in tears, and she said, "I'm so devastated." She really wanted Hillary Clinton to win. She said, "I'm crushed. I feel so powerless," because she really thought with the Access Hollywood tapes and everything else that you know what was her preferred candidate would prevail. And I said, "I can't let you feel powerless, Maeve. We have power, like literally of anybody. Like your mother's a sitting elected official. You've got some power. What can we do? Let's think of something we can do that will make you feel like you have taken your power back." And she thought about it, and she realized that as a 13-year-old girl at that time, she was really, actually she might have been 12. She was really upset about the sexual harassment and sexual misconduct that had been in the news. It was all the talk in middle school, right? You got Bill Cosby, you got Brock Turner. There were a lot of things that the adolescent population was really, you know, they're just learning about sex and sexuality. And here's this national conversation. This is before the Me Too movement, but it was the beginnings of what led to the Me Too movement, right? And so she said to me, Well, I'm in 7th grade sex ed, and it's terrible. It doesn't make any sense. We go in there and we learn about, you know, STD prevention and pregnancy prevention, but they're not starting with like, let's talk about consent. Let's talk about when you should be having sex and when it's not right to be having sex. And then let's talk about pregnancy prevention and STD prevention. And I said, that's a great idea. I had a lot of experience in the past. I used to be the executive director of NARAL Pro-Choice Maryland. So I knew how the sex ed laws were structured in Maryland. And I knew that what we needed to do was just go in and mandate teaching about consent. So Maeve and I worked together to come up with a proposal, and she presented it to the legislature. And it was very interesting. The first year, it passed unanimously out of our local county jurisdiction. It was supposed to be a local bill just for her county school system. Passed unanimously, but they said, we really want to make this a statewide effort. So we brought it to the state legislature, and the Republicans and the Democrats who were from conservative areas killed it on the Senate floor. There were a lot of speeches about if you start teaching people in middle school about consent, you're implying they're allowed to have sex. You know, in Maryland, we still have a handful of very powerful, very conservative Democrats, and they did not like the idea of adding this to our sex ed curriculum. And we were sure it was going to pass. We had counted the votes before, but they flipped a couple votes after this floor debate. And it's running up to midnight on sine die, the last minute to pass a bill. It was maybe half an hour before when it was finally killed on the floor. And I was so crushed. And I had to tell my daughter that her bill died. And I said to her, Maeve, I can't explain it. I can't explain it, why they don't see it the way that you see it. I'm so sorry. And she said, Mom, because she had, remember, this is, I don't know, my 7th or 8th year as a legislator. She had seen my bills die before. Not all of my bills always pass on the first year, believe it or not. She said, Mom, what's the big deal? We're coming back next year. It'll pass next year. And that was it. That was her first thought. And lo and behold, in the interim, between that year and the next year, the whole Me Too movement happened. And every single legislator voted for that bill the next year. Every Republican, every conservative Democrat, every Democrat, unanimous. So I was really happy because I was able to use my experience as her parent and her information she's sharing with me on the ground about what's going on with those 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds, how the sex ed curriculum doesn't make sense, to empower her and empower a whole bunch of student activists to make a positive change that had helped everyone across the state. And then after Maryland did this, a lot of other states started following. Everyone was like, why don't we teach consent in sex ed? So it was really able to snowball and have, I think, a national effect. So it was awesome.
Wonderful. I think it just shows how much we can still be learning every day from our own children, and how they push us to do the things that they need us to do. Okay, let's go to Janie.
So for me, I think everything that I do, you know, it's because I'm a mom. As one of the co-founders of PLE, Parents Leading for Educational Equity, that really started because I'm a mom, and really to push policy that makes sense in terms of like making sure that our schools are funded properly, that there's equity within education. But throughout my campaign, for me, the biggest issue policy issue that I pushed is affordable housing, because when we lift up moms, we lift up families, their children, like we're literally changing their entire lives. So when families don't have to worry about things like housing, right, the cost of housing, then they're able to invest in other areas of their life. So that's one of the, one of the bigger issues that I pushed during my campaign. And I also just want to kind of add, they're the little things that kind of, as a mom, like running for office, I love that my 5-year-old has the language of like a primary or like a city council race or a ward. Like I didn't learn about any of these things until, I was much older than 5. So it's like that type of experience, and passing this on to my daughters is really what keeps me going, and what keeps me just pushing and going every day. So.
Wonderful. I know that I ran for office because for a lot of reasons, but it seemed normal to me because my mom had run for school committee when I was a kid. And so it seemed like that's the thing you do. That's what you do when you're a mom. And, so now I'm passing it on to my kids as well. I hope that, they will be politically involved as well.
That's right. Let's normalize it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Aniece.
Talking about the policy that I'm pushing for, I have to say, what got me into politics the first place is because I am a mom. My 5-year-old went to school, and unfortunately, I don't know what happened. I forgot to pay the lunch, and they gave him a sun batter. I didn't know what is a sun batter. He didn't know what was a sun batter, and he didn't eat it. When I went to pick him up at the school, and I saw dry tears in his face, and I saw something went wrong, and I asked him, "What happened? Why you are so sad?" And he told me, "Oh, Mom, why you didn't pay for me? I'm hungry." And that's broke my heart. And that's when I realized there was a policy that shamed kids when parents do not, have, I was like, until now, when I talk about it, it makes me cry. I see his face. So I was delinquent for $1,250 in his account. And the school let him spend the whole day without food. He was 5 years old. So that's when I start to ask questions and start to go to the meetings and ask why you shame a 5-year-old. And to have him the choice to have a hot meal, it costs $2.50. And for $2.50, you let my kids spend the whole day hungry. And you tell me you are investing in kids in the future. So I went to the meetings and asked question why. And from that day, there was an article come out, people get over it, and we're able to stop that. So now from that happened to my kids, it doesn't happen again because they stop it. And I think that's one of the best things that ever happened when I start this fight. So I'm working now in a policy. Someone told me, if you want to change policy around school, you should not be running for city council. But I think we can start the conversation. Someone told me you should go to the school committee. But I went for school committee. They didn't select me. So the opportunity comes and I'm running for city council. And I think I can have the conversation going on. We need to fund our school properly, equitably. So I have to mention when Ariana talked about that, so internal barriers. So I'm in my 11 years in the United States. So I was born and raised in Haiti. So speaking Creole and French and starting learning English. And that's one of the things I know when I cannot say the words really properly and with my accent, and how I will go into politics with that. People will laugh at me and look at me. But you know what? I don't care now. I don't care. So people think if I'm like not qualified, I don't care, but I know I am. So if I mispronounce something, you get it. So, or ask me, but I don't care. I want to have this policy because I have so many things around education. And I think we need to invest in our elementary school because that's where you make the big impact. That's where you shape the person. That's why you shape the entire humankind. So if you wait until the kids get into 5th, on the 7th and 8th grade, that's when you think you're gonna change the person, the behavior. That's when you will need a deterrent. So my policy, one thing I want to see if we invest properly resources for our teachers, resources for our students in the school, and we can form in the generation when we get into high school, we don't need to have a deterrent. That's one of the policy. And unfortunately, people, when I talk about funding the school, when I talk about proper resources for the school, they distorted my ideas. And I want people to understand why in this panel, if they are my Cranston resident, my Ward 2 resident, I want to tell you, I am not for defunding the police, but I am for ongoing training of the police. At the same time, I am for equitable education for our kids. Some of you might think that things going on really well, there's nothing to change, like my opponent think. Everything is going perfect, but it's not. Because my kids go to school some years, the school didn't paint. There was no paint, it was miserable. You see the ceiling almost dropped down. We need to show our kids, this is beautiful. Where you go, when you go to the classroom, it's attractive. This is welcoming. So that's what I am for, policy where we have an education that is properly funded, equitable, quality, access for every child. And we see it when school is not funded, we see the inequities. And it's not one person's fault. It's not one person who is responsible, it's the system. So we need to start with the system. And I'm going for it. Even people think that's not my job, but I want to start the conversation as a policy, and people from the State House will pick up on that, but starting the conversation.
All right, thank you, Aniece. All right, let's go down to Kelda.
Well, for me, there are so many policies that I've long supported that are, I think, helpful to mothers. You know, before I had kids, I sponsored legislation on the right to breastfeed without interference, and comprehensive sex ed and reproductive rights and midwifery access. But the need for paid family leave, I always knew that it was an important issue and an equity issue, but until you have kids, I think, you know, it's hard to really understand how completely exhausted you are by the experience of being pregnant and then having a newborn baby. And we know now that those first couple of weeks and months really set the tone for your parenting. And so it's really important that men and the non-birthing partner in, you know, two-parent relationships have leave as well, because otherwise you're just setting up a situation where for the rest of your life, the woman is going to be the one that's managing the kid and doing, you know, waking up at night for years and years. And I'm also a small business owner. After I left the legislature, I started a small business, and to see that, you know, employees of big companies were able to get paid family leave, even though we have such a terrible patchwork in this country. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, I really couldn't afford to be taking any time off from my business. You know, I think it's an economic issue as well, but it really was just a huge human issue. And so when I had my second daughter, I basically spent a month in bed and then got up and started running for governor and just brought the baby with me. And we had our leave traveling around the state.
Wonderful. Thanks. Okay, and finally, Ruth, do you want to share some policy thoughts?
Yes, gosh, this is such a rich conversation and so many things come to mind. I think back to when I was a little girl and I was 10 years old, and as the big sister, seeing things happen in our community. For example, one of my younger sisters was misdiagnosed at our field clinic in Mandaree, which is located on the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation. And so from that point forward, I set out to become a medical doctor because I wanted to fix, what is now known as like a broken healthcare system. So as a public health professional, like we know that there's opportunities through policy, and also that poor health is a result of poor policy. And so as a freshman legislator, I had the opportunity to introduce 8 pieces of legislation in this last legislative session, and 7 of them passed. The only bill that did not pass with a strong, swift do not recommendation or do not pass recommendation out of committee was a child care assistance bill. It would have provided child care assistance. It would have reinstated the state median income level from 2016. And so when it was cut in 2016, 890 children were kicked off of child care assistance program. And so, there's lots of work there. Of course, it had a huge fiscal note, but I really believe that working families, in order to be successful in the workforce, if you need child care assistance, we should have that public service available when people need it. And so we also know that childcare assistance and childcare brings us access to the workforce, and so there's a lot of work to be done. And so as a mom, we also are dealing with the epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and men, all people, all genders. And so we brought forth a number of bills that focused on addressing this issue, again, trying to use a comprehensive lens. So we have passed a few bills that are now law. The first one was missing and murdered Indigenous people training for law enforcement. The other was data collection. After digging deeper, we found that within North Dakota, prior to this piece of legislation being introduced, there were no mechanisms in place to collect data on missing people, period. So these new laws now highlight tribal affiliation. If you're a member of a federally recognized tribe or a citizen of a tribal nation, that will also be included in this data collection. And we know data is so important, including accurate data. And I know that's across the board, an area that needs special attention. And so the other 2 bills were human trafficking prevention and awareness for schools, K through 12, and then also for hotels. And then there was a resolution urging Congress to pass Savannah's Act. The Savannah's Act is named after a young Indigenous mother who went missing here in Fargo when she was 8 months along in her pregnancy. And so many of us helped provide support for the family. We were helped searching for her. The baby is alive and well today, but sadly, Savannah was murdered for her baby, her daughter. And so a lot of the legislation that I brought forth, I think really does have an underlying theme for children and families, and women, really just focusing on keeping all people safe and making sure that all people are protected. And so that's kind of an area or passion of mine, is making sure that we have strong and safe communities. The other bill that was passed into law, which is kind of sad also when you think about it in this day and age, having to introduce such legislation, was to prohibit school boards across the state of North Dakota, so school boards could not stop Native American high school seniors from wearing an eagle feather or eagle plume. And so, that was a very very interesting experience, but we had a lot of Native American youth show up and provide testimony for the first time in the committees, the committee hearings in our state legislature. And so, there was a lot of empowerment happening, within the last legislative session. In North Dakota, we meet every other year, and then our House reps, and we also serve 4-year terms. But so, it was something to hear high school seniors tell me, on their graduation day that they were, so excited to see this bill become law, because many of their schools were not going to allow them to wear eagle feather, eagle plume. And so, so yeah, that's just a little bit of the legislation that I had the opportunity to work on. We're coming off of our interim committee year. I sit on the interim judiciary committee. And so again, just looking to find ways to help support our working families and to help keep our families, our communities safe and strong. So thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm so amazed at the range of policy priorities that were brought up here tonight. And I mean, we all know it, but when women and moms are in elected office, these issue areas like education, pay equity, women's health issues, they all get so much more attention, and we really can bring our personal experiences, to the table, make them public so that people pay attention. We can actually really get some great things done. Okay, so unfortunately it is 6:14 and this conversation has been so wonderful, but we do have to close it out. So I'd love to give, if anybody has any kind of closing thoughts, quickly to share, please go ahead.
So I'm just going to say real quickly that if you're watching this and you're thinking about running, just do it. Just do it. It really will make a big difference. As somebody once said, whether you win or lose, you will make a difference. There will be a gain. And if you do win, it's really cool to be at the table.
Yes.
I agree with that. Anyone else?
I would love to just say to folks who are watching that if you're not ready to run, then please get behind women like these wonderful women who are running. Donate your time, donate your coffee money, donate what you can, and be sure to get your kids and your teens involved to help, because that we need you, they need you, and that's how we get policy change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
This is Ruth. I could also just add, just echoing the previous speakers, that if you have the thought about running, just reach out to others and really look for local resources. We have, a really good program here locally in the Fargo-Moorhead area, the New Women's Leadership Institute that is affiliated with Rutgers University. I attended in 2011, and as alumni, they really keep you involved and engaged, where you can volunteer on different program planning committees and such, but also, just like she said, really support one another, find ways to help each other in your campaigns. I was kind of a late bloomer in terms of like student government and things. I didn't get involved into an elected position within student government per se until like my third master degree, and that was in public health. And so just really wanting to encourage people that, you don't have to be the cookie cutter candidate, as many of us are moms too. And so you have a lot of strengths to bring to the table, and I agree, just do it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I know that personally, I am thrilled when women reach out to me and, ask me about running for office, and like all of us are probably very willing to like pull those women up and give them the information that they need to get started strong. So yes, do reach out to elected women if you're interested.
And there's some really great resources that, for example, Emily's List at this point has put on their website. The Barbara Lee Foundation. There's a number of groups out there, and of course, Womxn Project, that are really there to help you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to, okay, first of all, I want to thank the Womxn Project and Senator Valverde for moderating this conversation. And thank you to all of you. It's a pleasure to meet you. And for this conversation, I learned a lot. And I want to encourage other women, Black women also, to take the risk. You know, you can do it. I think I have to make it. I have to win this election in November. So I will need your support, Rhode Island. Ward 2, all the constituents in Ward 2, I want to tell you that if you have a question, if you have a concern, please reach out. And my ideas have been distorted, but we need to have a conversation, start a conversation. And conversation is progress. That's why you make progress. Having a conversation, starting the conversation. So to all my friends in Rhode Island, I will tell you I need money. So I will be calling you to give a donation to Aniece Germain, or I'll go on my Facebook page to give a donation, because if you would like to see me elected in November, I need your support. I have an opponent. He is a young guy. I respect him because he wants to serve, but I don't think he has anything really to bring for the values we share, because what he's been saying, there is nothing to change really in Cranston. And we think we have improvement. We need to make improvement. So please go to my page, make a donation for Aniece Germain to become the city council in 2021. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Womxn Project, for this opportunity.
Great, thank you. I love that confidence, asking for money. You gotta do it.
Ariana just told me, do it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so thank you all so much.
Julie said that, Julie. Julie said, do it.
Yeah. Thank you for participating today. This has been a great discussion, and thank you to everyone who tuned in at home. So we all know that this upcoming election in November is so consequential. So make sure that you are registered to vote, that all of your friends are registered to vote, your families are registered to vote, and that they have a plan to vote, because we cannot sit this one out. And if you are feeling inspired, do give to a candidate that you love. Do volunteer for them. Do cheer them on, because we all need a lot of support. And you don't know how much it means when you get that support. So thank you all so much. And with that, we will say goodbye.
Thank you.
Everyone, and thank you to the Womxn Project.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.